Mark had never thought he would find himself on Zalora 7, a lawless trading planet on the edge of the galaxy. The moment his shuttle touched down, he was struck by the chaos of the interstellar market. Hundreds of alien species, shapes, and colors crowded the streets, shouting over one another, haggling for goods and trading information that could be worth a fortune or cost a life. The air smelled of strange spices, ionized metal, and something sweet he couldn't identify. He adjusted his worn jacket, feeling out of place. As a human trader from a small mining colony, he wasn't used to such a spectacle. Most of his life had been about surviving harsh terrain and moving ore. But Zalora 7 promised rare technology and materials that could make or break him. He needed a guide, someone who knew the market better than he did. That's when he saw her. She was sitting quietly at a small booth tucked in a corner of the market, away from the noise and chaos. Her skin shimmered with a soft golden hue that seemed to catch the light in a way that made her glow. Her eyes were large, deep, and reflective like polished gems, and her movements were graceful and deliberate. She wasn't just another market alien looking to sell goods or information. She radiated intelligence and calm. Mark hesitated. He had heard stories from other traders about renting aliens for a night, not for anything harmful, but as assistants, translators, or guides in dangerous parts of the galaxy. It was legal on Zalora 7, though often misunderstood by newcomers. When he approached, a shady vendor nearby leaned over and whispered, "You want her? 5 credits a night. She'll help you survive the market, negotiate, and even protect you if needed." Mark's brow furrowed. 5 credits wasn't much. The small price made him suspicious, but the way she looked at him, steady and patient, convinced him that she was no ordinary assistant. "All right," he said cautiously. "I'll rent her for tonight." The vendor grinned and motioned for Lyra to stand. She moved with elegance, her long limbs folding perfectly as she stepped forward. Mark noticed her hands, delicate yet strong. There was a confidence in the way she held herself, like someone who had faced danger countless times and survived. "Hello?" Mark said, feeling awkward. He had expected her to remain silent, but she inclined her head and replied in perfect basic galactic. "I am Lyra. I will assist you as you request." The words were calm, precise, and carried no hesitation. Mark felt a twinge of relief. At least she spoke the common language. They started moving through the crowded market. Instantly, Lyra proved herself invaluable. When a group of aggressive aliens tried to overcharge him for a rare energy crystal, Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was soft but commanding.
"These prices are illegal under Zalora 7 regulations," she said, showing them a datapad with market rules.
The alien sneered but backed off, clearly respecting her authority. Mark couldn't believe it. A rented assistant, and she was already saving him from being ripped off. As they continued, Lyra navigated him through narrow alleys, warning him of hidden dangers and alerting him to shady merchants trying to scam him. She even negotiated for him on rare tech components, getting him a better price than he had dared hope for. By the time the sun of Zalora 7 began to dip below the horizon, painting the market in shades of deep orange and purple, Mark realized he was relying on Lyra more than he expected. He found himself watching her as she moved. Her awareness, speed, and calm under pressure were astonishing. She wasn't just a guide. She was a protector. Then came the first real test. A gang of scavenger aliens cornered them near the outskirts of the market. They were rough-looking with jagged claws and glowing red eyes, and they seemed to enjoy threatening newcomers. Mark froze, unsure what to do. He had faced dangers before, but nothing like this. Lyra, however, didn't hesitate. She stepped between Mark and the gang. "You are not allowed to harm my client," she said. Her voice was calm but firm, carrying an authority that seemed impossible for someone of her size. One of the gang members lunged at Mark, but Lyra's reflexes were faster. She grabbed his arm, twisting it gently but firmly, redirecting him out of harm's way, and used a small device from her belt. A pulse of energy shot out, creating a temporary shield that pushed the gang back. The gang hissed in frustration and backed away. Mark's heart was racing. He had never seen anything like that. What? He stammered. Lyra simply tilted her head and said, "It is my duty to protect those I am assigned to. I am trained for situations like this." Mark realized something important in that moment. Lyra wasn't just rented. She was capable, intelligent, and brave. Renting her had been a gamble, but it was already paying off. As night fell, the market transformed. Bright neon lights and holograms lit up the streets. Music and chatter filled the air, and the scent of alien food drifted around them. Mark and Lyra stopped near a small food stall to rest. Mark bought some local delicacies, unsure what he was eating, and Lyra accepted a small portion, sampling the flavors with curiosity. They sat in silence for a moment. Mark finally asked, "Why do you rent yourself out? You're amazing. You could work anywhere with anyone." Lyra looked at him with her large, reflective eyes. "This is not my choice. My people are bound by contracts to serve temporarily. It is part of our survival system. I am skilled, and the market provides opportunity for those skills." "But it is always temporary," Mark frowned. There was something deeply unfair about that. Here was an intelligent, capable being, forced into temporary work just to survive, and yet she carried herself with dignity, refusing to show anger or fear. By the end of the night, Mark realized he wasn't just impressed, he felt respect, admiration, and something more he didn't yet understand. Lyra had saved him from danger multiple times, helped him negotiate, and shared stories of her people. She was more than a tool or assistant. She was a partner, in every sense that mattered in the moment. As they returned to the booth where he had rented her, Mark hesitated. He wasn't ready to let her go back to whoever might claim her next. But the rules were clear. The rental ended at sunrise. Lyra looked at him, calm and patient. "Your rental time is complete," she said softly, as if reminding him of reality. Mark swallowed. He didn't know what to do. Something inside him urged him not to let her leave. He had only planned to rent her for the night, but now he felt that he couldn't just send her away. He had seen what she could do, how intelligent and brave she was, and he had begun to care. "Wait," he said finally, I need more time. Can you stay?" Lyra regarded him for a long moment. Then slowly she inclined her head. "I may remain if you wish, but you must understand the consequences. I am not free, and the system may demand my return." Mark nodded, feeling a mix of relief and determination. He didn't know how yet, but he decided that he would find a way to free her. For now, having her by his side, willing to stay even for a little longer, felt like a victory. That night, they set up a small camp outside the market's central district. Lyra taught Mark techniques to move safely in the alien city, to read signs in strange languages, and to recognize subtle threats before they became dangers. Mark in turn shared stories of his life on human colonies, of harsh terrains and survival lessons that had shaped him. They laughed quietly under the alien stars, sharing the warmth of companionship in a world full of chaos and uncertainty. Mark couldn't shake the feeling that this night was the beginning of something far greater than a temporary partnership. Lyra wasn't just a rented assistant, and she was unique, extraordinary, and somehow essential. He didn't know how or why yet, but he felt a bond forming, something that no market transaction could ever define. As he drifted off to sleep, Mark resolved silently. Tomorrow he would find a way to keep her by his side. Not as a rental, not as a temporary guide, but as someone who could choose to stay because she wanted to. And for the first time in a long while, Mark felt hope. The sun rose slowly over Zalora 7, casting long shadows across the bustling market streets. Mark woke first, stretching stiff limbs from a night spent on a simple cot near the outskirts of the market. Lyra was already awake, sitting quietly and observing the early traders as they prepared their stalls. Her eyes, reflecting the pale morning light, seemed to take in everything. The people, the movements, the small dangers hiding in plain sight. Mark rubbed his eyes and sat up. "You're always awake before me," he said, trying to sound casual, though he felt a hint of admiration in his voice. Lyra turned to him with a faint smile. "I need to be aware of my surroundings. It is part of my training," Mark nodded. He had learned quickly that Lyra's training went far beyond anything he had ever imagined. She wasn't just a guide or protector. She was a strategist, a negotiator, and a quick-thinking problem solver. He couldn't help but feel grateful and increasingly dependent on her presence. They had agreed last night that they would stick together until Mark could figure out a way to keep her permanently. But that day, they had an immediate problem to solve. A supplier on the other side of the market had the rare energy cells that Mark needed for his mining equipment. Without them, his business would collapse, and the market was crawling with thieves, mercenaries, and opportunists ready to take advantage of any human trader who looked vulnerable. As they navigated the crowded streets, Lyra's movements were fluid and precise. She led Mark down narrow alleyways, past groups of aliens haggling loudly and trading dangerous-looking items. Every step she took seemed calculated. She avoided danger before it had a chance to appear. Mark followed, trying to keep up, his mind spinning with admiration and a little awe. "Why do you trust me?" he asked suddenly. The question came out of nowhere, but he had been thinking about it for hours. "I rented you. I don't even know if you like humans. Why stay with me?" Lyra tilted her head thoughtfully. "Trust is not given lightly, Mark. I observe your actions. You respect life, you make choices carefully, and you do not harm those weaker than yourself. That is why I remain. I could leave, but I choose not to." Mark felt a warmth in his chest, a mixture of pride and something else he didn't fully understand. For a moment, the chaos of Zalora 7 faded, and all that mattered was this alien woman who had chosen to stay with him, even when she had every reason not to. Finally, they reached the supplier's stall. A tall, spindly alien with multiple eyes peered at them suspiciously. "What do you want?" he asked in a harsh, clicking language. Lyra stepped forward, speaking in the alien dialect flawlessly. Mark watched in amazement as she negotiated. Her voice was calm but firm, her gestures precise. She argued about the quality of the energy cells, pointing out flaws in others' claims and securing a fair price for Mark. Within minutes, the deal was done. Mark handed over his credits, and the alien grumbled but accepted, clearly impressed by Lyra's skill. As they walked away, Mark couldn't contain himself. "I don't know how you do that," he said, shaking his head. "I would have been ripped off, or worse." Lyra shrugged, a small smile playing on her lips. "It is experience and training. You will learn." Mark laughed, but the sound was brief. He couldn't shake the growing realization that he didn't just want her help for business. He wanted her by his side fully, not just rented for a night. But he knew the system on Zalora 7 was cruel and strict. Aliens like Lyra didn't have freedom unless someone was willing to fight for it, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for that battle. Yet, their quiet moment was interrupted by a sudden commotion. A group of mercenaries appeared, blocking the street ahead. They were armed, their armor scratched and scarred, clearly veterans of countless skirmishes. The leader, a bulky alien with an eye patch and a jagged sword, pointed at Mark. "You human!" "Hand over the alien. She belongs to us." Mark froze. His heart raced. He hadn't anticipated this. Lyra, however, remained calm, placing herself slightly in front of him. Her golden skin seemed to shimmer, and her eyes focused on the mercenaries with an intensity that made Mark feel both protected and awed. "They are mistaken," Lyra said softly but firmly. "I am not their property." The mercenary laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Property? Don't kid yourself. You're a valuable asset, alien. Give her to us and maybe we'll be generous." Mark felt panic rising, but Lyra didn't move. Instead, she assessed the situation in a way Mark could barely comprehend. Then, with swift precision, she activated a small device on her wrist. A field of energy rippled outward, temporarily disorienting the mercenaries. They staggered, cursing, and Lyra grabbed Mark's arm, pulling him back down a side alley. As they ran, Mark's mind raced. He had thought the market was dangerous, but this was something different. These mercenaries had been hunting for her, and perhaps for him too. Lyra didn't speak much, but her actions were clear. She would not let them take her or him without a fight. They ducked into an abandoned warehouse and paused to catch their breath. Mark looked at her, heart pounding. You saved my life again. How can you be so calm?" Lyra's eyes met his. "Calmness is survival. Fear is weakness. You must learn to think before you act, Mark. Haste will get you killed." Mark nodded, feeling a mix of embarrassment and admiration. He realized that he'd been relying on her not just for protection, but for guidance in a world far more dangerous than his home colonies. After a brief rest, Lyra stood and surveyed the warehouse. "We cannot stay here. They will regroup. We must leave the city and find safety elsewhere, at least until nightfall." Mark followed her outside, keeping close. She led him through hidden pathways, over rooftops, and across bridges connecting different districts of the market city. Every step was calculated, every turn designed to avoid detection. Mark felt his confidence growing, not just in navigating the city, but in Lyra's ability to protect them. By the time they reached the edge of the city, Mark was exhausted but alive. Lyra paused at the boundary where the city's chaotic market gave way to rugged terrain. "We are safe for now," she said. "But the system that controls my kind will not forget. You must decide soon if you will help me gain freedom. Mark looked at her, feeling a determination he had never felt before. I will. I don't know how yet, but I will figure it out. I can't let them take you back. Lyra's expression softened slightly. That isn't unexpected. Most humans do not care. You're different. The words warmed Mark's heart. He didn't fully understand why he felt so strongly about protecting her, but he knew it was more than gratitude. He admired her intelligence, her bravery, and her spirit. He felt a bond forming, a connection that went beyond the temporary contract they had started with. As night approached, they set up a small camp just outside the city, under the alien stars. Lyra shared more about her home planet, a world of vast deserts and floating cities where her people were trained from a young age to survive in harsh conditions. She spoke of the strict systems that bound her kind to temporary service, and Mark listened, horrified by the injustice. He realized that he couldn't just rent her and return to his normal life. Lyra deserved freedom, respect, and choice, and he felt deep down that he was the one who could give it to her. For the first time since arriving on Zalora 7, Mark felt a sense of purpose beyond survival or profit. He was determined to protect Lyra, not just for one night, but for as long as she would allow him. And in that moment, as they sat together beneath the stars, he understood something vital. Their partnership was no longer about business. It was about trust, loyalty, and a shared fight for survival in a galaxy that could be cruel and unforgiving. Mark didn't know what the next day would bring, but he was ready. With Lyra by his side, he felt capable of facing anything, and he vowed silently that he would find a way to ensure she would remain with him, not as a rental, but as someone who chose to stay freely and forever. The morning light on Zalora 7 barely penetrated the thick smog of the market city. Mark awoke to the distant hum of hovercrafts and the chatter of early traders. Lyra was already on her feet, scanning the horizon with quiet focus. Mark watched her, impressed by how alert she remained even after the long night. You never sleep in, he said, stretching. How do you stay so ready? Lyra looked at him calmly. Preparedness is survival. One moment of distraction can be fatal. Mark nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He knew she was right. Their time in the market had shown him how dangerous this place could be, not just for a human, but for someone like Lyra, who had enemies everywhere. Today, they had a goal: to find a rare energy core needed to stabilize the equipment that powered Mark's mining operations. The core was rumored to be in the possession of a gang of scavengers who had a reputation for ruthlessness. It was risky, but necessary. As they approached the scavengers' territory, Lyra's senses sharpened. She signaled Mark to move slowly, crouching behind crates and containers. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every sound might be a trap. Mark followed her lead, trusting her instincts completely. The gang's base was a ramshackle structure of metal and debris, guarded by creatures with jagged claws and glowing eyes. Lyra whispered a plan. We will distract the guards while you retrieve the core. Timing and precision are essential. You must follow exactly as I instruct, Mark nodded. His hand shook slightly, but he trusted her. Together they moved toward the entrance. Lyra activated a small device, sending a pulse of light that temporarily blinded the guards. They moved like shadows, slipping past the chaos, silent and precise. Inside, the base was dark and cluttered. The energy core sat on a raised platform, surrounded by equipment and wiring. Mark's heart pounded as he approached it. This was the moment of truth. He reached for the core, but a loud crash echoed through the room. One of the guards had recovered faster than expected. Lyra acted instantly. She grabbed a nearby rod and swung it with precision, knocking the guard back. Mark, now! She shouted. He grabbed the core and they sprinted toward the exit. The chase was immediate. Guards poured out from every corner, but Lyra was faster. She leapt onto a metal beam, motioning for Mark to follow. They ran across rooftops, jumped over debris, and finally reached a narrow alley where they could hide. Mark's chest heaved. That was incredible, he gasped. I've never seen anyone move like that. Lyra's expression was calm, almost serene. Training and experience. You will learn if you are willing. Mark looked at her, feeling admiration mixed with a growing attachment. Every moment with Lyra showed him that she was not just a guide or assistant. She was extraordinary in every way. He couldn't imagine letting her go back into the system that had enslaved her, even temporarily. They paused in the alley, catching their breath. Mark set down the core and looked at Lyra. We can't keep running like this forever, he said. I need to find a way to make you free, not rented, free to stay if you choose. Lyra studied him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of caution and curiosity. Freedom is a complex concept for someone like me. Most humans do not understand the restrictions placed upon my people. If you seek to change my status, it will not be easy. Mark nodded. I don't care about easy, I don't want you to be forced to leave or be taken from me, not after everything we've been through. Lyra's expression softened slightly. Your determination is unusual, human. Most would ignore the system and focus on their own survival. You are different. Mark felt a warmth in his chest at her words. It wasn't just about admiration or gratitude anymore. He cared for her deeply, and he knew that he wanted her to choose to stay with him freely. The rest of the day passed in cautious movement. They navigated through the outskirts of the city, avoiding patrols and scavenger gangs. Lyra taught Mark techniques for staying unseen and moving quietly, while he shared strategies from his own experience as a trader and miner. They became a seamless team, each complementing the other's strengths. As night fell, they reached a small plateau overlooking the city. From there, they could see the glow of the market below, lights flickering like stars. It was quiet here, a stark contrast to the chaos they had navigated all day. Mark set up a small camp and they shared a simple meal. The silence was comfortable, filled only with the distant hum of hovercrafts and the whispering wind. Mark took a deep breath. Lyra, I've been thinking. Renting you was a mistake, not because of what we did, but because it was temporary. You're not something to rent, you're important. Lyra regarded him carefully. You speak of importance in terms unfamiliar to most humans. Explain. Mark swallowed, feeling awkward. I mean, I don't just want your help or your skills. I want you. With me. Freely. Not because you have to be, but because you choose to stay. I don't know how to do it yet, but I will find a way to make that happen. Lyra's eyes softened, and for the first time she allowed a small smile. Your words are sincere. Most humans would not think this way. I will consider your intentions carefully. Mark felt hope. He didn't need an immediate answer. He only needed to know that she was thinking about it, that she trusted him enough to weigh her options. Their moment of quiet was interrupted by a distant roar. A massive creature, one of the desert predators common to the outskirts of Zalora 7, emerged from the shadows. Its eyes glowed red, and its claws scraped against the rocky ground. Mark froze. This was unlike anything they had faced in the city. He had no weapons ready. Lyra stood, her posture calm and ready. Stay behind me, she instructed. The creature charged, and Lyra moved with astonishing speed, dodging and weaving around its attacks. She used a combination of her strength and a small energy device to push it back. Mark watched in awe, heart pounding. He realized again how capable she was, not just as a guide, but as a protector, a warrior in her own right. After a tense few minutes, Lyra managed to drive the creature away. Mark exhaled, still trembling. That was amazing, he said. I don't know how you do it. Lyra simply nodded. I told you. Training and experience. You will learn if you pay attention. Mark realized that he had learned more from her in 2 days than in years of trading and surviving. He wasn't just gaining knowledge, he was learning courage, strategy, and the importance of partnership. And he was learning how much he valued Lyra, not as a tool but as someone he cared for deeply. That night, as they settled near the plateau, Mark made a decision. He would find a way to legally purchase Lyra's freedom. He didn't know how much it would cost or how difficult it would be, but he was determined. He couldn't imagine returning to a life where she might be taken from him or forced to serve someone else. Lyra watched him quietly as he stared at the stars. You are unusually determined, she said. Most humans would avoid such risk. You are willing to fight for me. Mark looked at her, meeting her gaze. Yes, I don't want to just rent you. I want you to choose to be with me freely, and I'll do whatever it takes to make that possible. Lyra's eyes glimmered, reflecting the starlight. Then we will face the challenges together. If you are serious, human, then I will stand with you. But you must understand, the system will not yield easily. Mark nodded. He didn't care about easy. He cared about Lyra, and he would do whatever it took. For the first time in his life, he felt a purpose beyond survival or profit. He had someone to protect, someone to fight for, and someone he truly respected. As they drifted to sleep under the alien sky, Mark felt a quiet confidence. The future was uncertain, filled with danger and challenges, but he wasn't afraid. Lyra would be at his side, and together they could face whatever Zalora 7 or the galaxy threw at them. He didn't know how the system worked, or how difficult it would be to free her, but he was ready to learn, ready to fight, and ready to prove that a human could rise above fear, greed, and danger to protect someone truly extraordinary. And in that moment, Mark realized something vital. This was no longer just a story of renting a guide for a night. This was the beginning of a partnership, a bond built on trust, respect, and courage, and he was determined to see it through no matter the cost. The next morning, Mark awoke with a determination he had never felt before. Last night's stars had left a lingering sense of hope, but now he knew it was time to act. Lyra deserved more than temporary freedom. She deserved a choice. A life unbound by the cruel systems of Zalora 7. He found her already awake, sitting on a rocky outcrop, watching the distant city glow beneath the morning sun. "Good morning," he said, trying to sound calm, though his heart raced with anticipation. Lyra looked at him with her usual composed expression. "Good morning, Mark. You seem resolute." "I am," he replied. "I've made up my mind. I'm going to buy your freedom. Permanently. No more rentals, no more temporary contracts. You'll be able to choose your life." Lyra's large, reflective eyes studied him carefully. "That is an unexpected decision. Most humans would avoid such complications. Why do you risk so much for me?" Mark hesitated, searching for words. "Because I respect you. I admire you. And I don't want to see you treated like property ever again. Not even for a day. I want you to stay with me freely, if you choose to." For a moment, Lyra remained silent. Then slowly she nodded. "Very well. If you are sincere, then I will allow you to proceed. But you must understand the system will not let go easily." Mark nodded. He had anticipated difficulty. Zalora 7's rules were strict, and alien contracts were notoriously complex. But he had a plan. Over the past 2 days, he had learned enough about the market, the merchants, and the enforcement officials to know how to navigate the system. And with Lyra's guidance, he felt ready. They made their way back into the city, moving cautiously through the busy streets. Lyra's presence made the difference. She warned him of guards, helped him negotiate with merchants, and even deflected subtle threats before they escalated. Together, they were unstoppable. Finally, they arrived at the headquarters of the registry that controlled alien contracts. The building was massive, a towering structure of metal and holographic signage. Mark took a deep breath. This was the moment. Inside, they were met by a stern officer, an alien with pale blue skin and multiple eyes. "State your business," the officer demanded, his tone sharp. Mark stepped forward, holding the credits he had saved for this purpose. "I am here to purchase the permanent freedom of Lyra," he said firmly. "She is under contract, but I wish to legally secure her choice to live freely." The officer's eyes narrowed. "Such transactions are rare. Usually only the highest-ranking officials approve them. And the cost is substantial," Mark nodded. "I am prepared to pay whatever is required. Lyra is not property to me. She is someone I respect and want to remain with freely." The officer studied him for a long moment, clearly skeptical. Lyra stepped forward. "I choose him," she said simply. "I want to remain with Mark. Not because he purchased me, but because I trust him and wish to stand by his side." The officer blinked. "The alien's consent is unusual. Very well. We will prepare the documentation, but this will take time and verification. Meanwhile, you must remain under supervision," Mark agreed. He didn't care about supervision or scrutiny. As long as the system recognized Lyra's choice, he was satisfied. They were escorted to a small holding area, where they waited for several hours. During this time, they talked quietly about the future, about planets they wanted to explore, and the adventures they would face together. When the documents were finally ready, the officer presented them. Mark signed the forms, transferring the required credits, and the officer stamped the paperwork with a series of holographic seals. Lyra stepped forward, placing her hand on Mark's arm. "It is done," she said softly. "I am free." Mark felt a surge of relief and joy. He looked at her, and for the first time he realized how much he cared. "Lyra, you're free, and you're choosing to stay with me?" Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting both gratitude and warmth. "Yes, Mark, I choose to stay. Not because of the transaction, but because I wish to. I trust you and I believe we can face the galaxy together." They left the headquarters, stepping into the bright sunlight of Zalora 7. The market was bustling as always, but it felt different to Mark. They were no longer bound by the temporary contract, no longer running from those who sought to claim Lyra. They were partners, free to make their own choices. Over the next few days, they moved carefully through the city, securing supplies and preparing for their journey off-planet. Lyra helped Mark refine his trading skills, teaching him advanced negotiation techniques and alerting him to opportunities he would have missed. Mark, in turn, shared his knowledge of mining and technology, showing her how humans approached problem-solving with creativity and persistence. Their partnership deepened, not just as companions but as friends, allies, and equals. They laughed together, strategized together, and faced small dangers side by side. Mark realized that this bond was far more valuable than any material possession or credit he could earn. Lyra's intelligence, courage, and loyalty had become a part of his life in ways he could not have predicted. One evening, as they watched the twin moons rise over the city skyline, Mark spoke quietly. "Lyra, I know you're free now and you could go anywhere, but I hope you'll choose to stay with me. Not because of anything I did, but because you want to." Lyra turned to him, her expression serene. "Mark, I have made my choice. I stay because I trust you, because I believe in us. Freedom is more than the absence of contracts, it is the ability to choose. And I choose to be with you." Mark felt a rush of emotion he could barely contain. He had dreamed of freedom and adventure, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. Not just freedom, but trust, partnership, and connection with someone extraordinary. The following days were filled with preparations for their departure from Zalora 7. They gathered supplies, mapped out routes, and even secured a small shuttle. Lyra's knowledge of the galaxy and its systems was invaluable, guiding them safely past patrols, dangerous creatures, and hostile traders. When the shuttle was finally ready, Mark and Lyra stood together on the launch pad. The market city stretched out below them, a chaotic, vibrant maze of life and opportunity. Mark looked at Lyra, feeling a profound gratitude. "We did it," he said. "You're free and we can go anywhere." Lyra smiled, her golden skin shimmering in the morning light. "Yes, Mark, and we will face the galaxy together." As the shuttle lifted off, the wind rushing past them, Mark felt a sense of exhilaration. They were free together, and ready for whatever challenges awaited. The stars stretched out before them, endless and inviting. For the first time in his life, Mark understood the true meaning of partnership, trust, and courage. It wasn't about transactions or survival. It was about respect, loyalty, and the choice to stand by someone extraordinary. Lyra reached out and took his hand. "The galaxy is vast, Mark," she said softly. "But together we can explore it all." Mark squeezed her hand, smiling. "Together," he agreed. And as the shuttle soared into the sky, leaving Zalora 7 behind, Mark knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was wide and full of danger, but with Lyra by his side, he felt unstoppable. They had faced impossible odds, defied unfair systems, and forged a bond stronger than fear or greed. In the quiet hum of the shuttle as stars streaked past them, Mark realized something profound. Freedom was not just a gift, but a choice. And the greatest choice of all was the one Lyra had made, to stay with him. It was a choice built on trust, respect, and admiration, a choice that neither credits nor contracts could ever define. And as they charted a course toward new worlds and adventures, Mark and Lyra understood that their story was just beginning. Together they would face the unknown, explore the far reaches of the galaxy, and build a life shaped not by fear but by courage, partnership, and the freedom to choose. Mark leaned back in his seat, glancing at Lyra. "Ready for the first stop?" he asked, a grin spreading across his face. Lyra returned the smile. "Ready, let's see what the galaxy has to offer." And with that, the shuttle jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying them into the vast, uncharted expanse of stars, a human and an alien. Partners, friends, and companions free at last to write their own destiny.